Tom Thibodeau was completely transformative for Jalen Brunson's career. There's a chance Mike Brown is about to do even more for him.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are locked on to the New York Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a New York City native. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering the Knicks for nearly a decade and the Saturday host of the Locked On NBA podcast. This is Locked On Knicks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 whole days a week. So be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com right now to get started. Guys, on today's show, we pick up where we left off with Kris Pursiainen finishing up our Jalen Brunson player preview and really going in depth on the Tom Thibodeau, Mike Brown debate. I thought it was worth spending a lot of time on this because I opened this episode thinking we were just going to be talking about Jalen Brunson's season, previewing his season, and it turned out like the best way to frame that, Kris and I felt, was what changes under Mike Brown, and is there a chance that hurts Jalen more than it helps him, or does it just open up a new world of possibilities? So we get into that, and we also get into the idea that like while Jalen is obviously going to be better and Mike Brown's usage might be better, the rest of the league isn't static, right? They're going to defend him in new ways, more aggressive ways. Does Jalen have the answers? Did the Knicks have the answers? Find out right now on Locked On Knicks.
I just think you're adding more options to the arsenal. Like you had rock and paper and scissors, and that's awesome. And like you used rock 70% of the time and paper 15% of the time and scissors 15% of the time, or do the analogy, build your own analogy, right? But like now you're throwing in other stuff, harder for the opponent to predict what you're going to do. Also, and I told you, I'll say this a million times on this show, so I have to, make true on it. Like the Boston Celtics championship that so many people like to say they won because of 5 out. That's just not what happened. Like objectively, that's like saying you made it to your job tomorrow morning because you pushed your foot down to the ground. Like there were other things going on. You were in a car. There was a gas pedal. The tank was full of gas, right? Like it was more than just that one simple thing. The Celtics laid out 6 shots worth of poison, and they told the Mavericks to pick which one they were going to drink. The Mavericks chose the one that involved Kristaps Porzingis bombs away from downtown because they kept getting indecisive on what to do with Lively and decided to have him drop, because when he dropped, then Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum couldn't just waltz into the paint, kick to an open shooter, a spray, as Mike Brown would say, right? And then make a 3. So they chose that instead. The Knicks are going to have options. A big part of that is seeing Karl-Anthony Towns more at power forward. A big part of that is, while Karl-Anthony Towns is at power forward, having 2 different kinds of centers to play at center. It's not just Robinson or Hartenstein. It's Robinson or Yabusele. These are starkly different big men, both in height, where they are like half a foot apart in height, and also in skill set, where one is good at everything the other is not. I like, this is how to do it, right? Because you can say, all right, I'm gonna give you this look, this personnel grouping, but they're gonna play this way. Okay, now they're gonna play this way. Now we're gonna put in that first personnel grouping, but they're gonna play the second way. We're gonna put Mitch out there, but they're gonna be running the floor. And now we're gonna put Yabu in there, and we're gonna be playing ground and pound. Jalen, lots of dribbling with shooting, go kill in the mid-range because they're dropping, so you're getting that one-on-one space. And we know you're a 97, 98, 99, 100th percentile one-on-one scorer, so go do that. Just because they have a 5-out lineup on the floor doesn't mean they need to be playing chat GPT basketball, the whoever offense, where you're passing to an open guy and they're passing and screening away. And then like it's going to be what the defense tells them to do right now. That's a familiar phrase when it came to Tom Thibodeau, and Mike Brown has started out saying the same thing. The difference is in their principles. So Tom Thibodeau wanted the Knicks to give the ball to Jalen Brunson. That's in his Venn diagram only. He wanted Jalen Brunson with the ball to probe the defense, see what adjustments they were making, kind of like in football, pre-snap motion, get a receiver moving from one side to the other, see if they're in man or zone. This is the same thing in basketball. Get Jalen Brunson to drive into the paint. All of a sudden, that's an action, and that triggers a response from the defense. They need to now check and see, are they going to switch? Are they going to stunt? Are they going to hedge? Are they going to ice the pick and roll? So it's up to them, and they'll tell you what to do. Tom Thibodeau wanted Jalen Brunson to make that read. He wanted Jalen Brunson playing quarterback. Every play, Jalen Brunson gets the snap, reads the defense, decides if he's going to do it, a handoff, pass the ball, right? It was a lot of RPO. Mike Brown is wildcat. This is backyard 7-on-7 football. This is David Montgomery, direct snap, touchdown, Jared Goff. This is insanity. And the point is, it's controlled insanity, not a frantic offense. It's a frenetic offense. And so this controlled chaos with the X's and O's is all very intentional. And that's why, and I just wrote about this for Clutch Points as pretty much my game story from the other night, is that's why Mike Brown hasn't installed any plays yet, because he doesn't want to tell them, you do this and you do this and you stand in that corner and you do this. He wants to teach them habits. Once they learn these habits, then, and probably before they learn these habits, he'll start installing play calls so that they're ready for the season. But the point, and I think, Gavin, I'm curious to know, like, everyone was talking about with Tom Thibodeau, how he never used the regular season to experiment. You and XJ were just talking about this the other day, about how it looks like they're bucking that trend now. Did you expect this to be what it looked like? Like, was this when you always wanted Tom Thibodeau to experiment? Like you just said, you get at him on this podcast. I think I am pretty easily and quickly falling as, like, by far the most pro Tibbs co-host, and I'm someone who agreed with the decision to move on from him. And like Tom Thibodeau, I think everyone observed what the kind of order of operations was. That became predictable. So Mike Brown's not saying that they're going to be in game 7 against the Denver Nuggets, Jokic, Tim Hardaway for a fading corner 3 in the Garden, WWE moment, and then it's time for the Knicks to be on offense. So Jalen Brunson's going to get the ball and pass it to Gershon Yabusele, who's going to take a corner 3 and for game 7 in the final. Like, no, Jalen's going to have the ball. Mike has told you that. But, like, how do you get there? How do you get from game 1 to game 20? How do you get from game 60 to game 82? How do you get from the first round to the second round when you get to the second round and all your playoff plays are on tape, right? So it's all about teaching these instincts, teaching these habits, instilling these principles that are different from Tom Thibodeau's. But I think it's worth noting, right, that the phrase that had the ire of fans for so many years, which is the defense tells you what to do, it's Mike Brown's exact philosophy. He just speaks a different language. Like, Tom hears what the defense tells him to do and says, okay, that means we do this. Mike hears that same thing and says, oh, that means we do this. Neither one of them is right or wrong. It's all about the perfect storm. So I do think, because of the talent the Knicks have, like you mentioned, the untraditional 1-2 pairing in Brunson and Towns, where neither one is known as a good defender. Or rather, where both are known as subpar defenders. This is super interesting. I do kind of think that the guy who architected the Draymond Green linchpinned defense for so many years, like, he would figure it out, right? Like, this would be who figures it out. I don't know. I think the perfect storm, there's a chance for it to brew that there wasn't before. This is a higher ceiling, both for Brown in regards to the roster he has compared to Sacramento, and also for Brunson in regard to the coach he has and what strategy he's going to employ.
All right, guys, we're going to pick up with Kris in just a sec. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play. I built parlays, trade player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes football just that much more exciting, especially if you live in New York and you are a Giants or a Jets fan, where things have been pretty miserable over the last 13 years. Granted, Jackson Dart beat the Eagles. Maybe things are looking up a little for the Giants. If you're a Jets fan, what was it? Under negative net passing yards, including sacks for Justin Fields. It was not a good day. The Jets are winless. Hopefully the future is brighter, but man, it does not look good right now. So you want to add a little bit more juice to your Sundays, and FanDuel will help you do exactly that. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience just that much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. We also want to tell you about our good friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. So you don't have the full picture, well, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put up organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Guys, part of what I love about Monarch Money is I'm someone who gets extremely anxious about organizing my finances, and they just make it incredibly easy, right? Because they help you maximize your investments, they increase your saving rates. This is probably my favorite part. They make it easily reviewable so you and your partner are on the same page, and or financial advisor, and keep a clear view of your financial health week to week and long term. Both those things are very important. So don't let financial opportunities slipping through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. It's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. I think you are, like, the way I'd phrase, like, you're buying lottery tickets, right? And Mike Brown is just giving you, like, opening you up to higher ceiling outcomes and maybe hurting your floor, because Tom Thibodeau, like this would be my compliment to him. Like, he established like a very clear cut floor. And I think the Knicks in some ways, like, and we're going to see it in the playoffs this year, it was advantageous that they treated the regular season like the playoffs, both in terms of the minutes the guys played and the style of basketball they played. And I think Tom Thibodeau, like, his inclination and what he would tell people was like all that cute crap, like maybe that's like the G-rated version of how he would phrase it, that like people like me and XJ like preach about on these shows in terms of offensive creativity, in terms of ball movement. He's like, that's all fantastic. That's great. You can do that. Maybe even you win more games in the regular season with a lower load on your stars doing that. You don't get to do that in the playoffs, right? When teams have scouted out every single one of your actions, where it ultimately becomes just about like hunting the right matchup, hunting the right switch, hunting the weakest defender on the floor, hunting the weakest duo of defenders on the floor. Why not just play the whole regular season that way? He's obviously forgotten dramatically more basketball. And I hate this is turning into like the litigate Tom Thibodeau episode, because it should be about Jalen Brunson, but it's hard to separate the two, just because
this is exactly what this
Yeah.
Is this approach going to get more out of Brunson than the last approach? Now, if you're watching from home and you're a points per game kind of person, maybe not. But if we're looking at the win column, which I can tell you is what Jalen Brunson, Leon Rose, James Dolan are looking at, maybe. I'm not saying it will be, but I do think it's lined up to be, which is pretty interesting because it brings up this less is more thing. The options, right? It's not my rock is super sharp and my rock is going to beat your paper or scissors every time. It's we have rock, paper, scissors, abacus, and ruler. And we have all these different things we can throw at you. We don't have to be just as good at one as the rest. We just need to be able to do them all. They're not saying that the quarterback needs to be able to run like Vic and throw like Josh Allen and read defenses like Peyton. We're just saying stop throwing over the middle every single play, right? That'll be my final football analogy. It's Sunday. It's infested in my brain right now.
Yeah. I think that's what I was trying to get at, where you said so eloquently before. I mean, just the idea that you have
that's a lie. Nothing
Sorry.
I said was eloquent.
I don't know. I think it was well said. But anyways, like I think the optionality can only help you, and I think Indiana is proof positive that, I like to use my own made up phrase of how Tom Thibodeau would critique me. This is getting really like inside John Malkovich, but I think like the Indiana Pacers are proof of concept that some of that can work in the playoffs, and a lot of that can work in the playoffs. And the reason why it works for Indiana is because, very similar to how Tom Thibodeau only played one way, like Indiana full bore just committed to that style of hoops and like supplemental, like ball handling, decision making, collective chemistry, and IQ. That stuff, like, I think it is very real. And I know like our buddy Benji Ridholtz, like, and I really appreciate this angle and this perspective. And hopefully we'll get him on sometime this preseason or this regular season to debate it. Like, I think he was arguing the notion, like I think like that we're all obsessed with the idea of like the beautiful game and what the Spurs did in the late 2010s and what the Knicks did, like better example, in the early, like late 60s, early 70s. And that's not always optimal. And sometimes what's optimal, to your point on all the like B-ball index analytics you were throwing out there, is just to put the ball in the hands of like arguably the best one-on-one scorer on planet Earth and let him freaking cook. But to your point, the beauty of what Mike Brown is building is you will have that Pacers beautiful game. You will have that Jalen Brunson. All right, let him cook. And you can go to both of those things when they're required. And you can also go to both of them in just one play, right? You can run Jalen off 2 or 3 screens, get him an advantage, and then he can just be attacking a big in space versus attacking Drew Holiday, like with a congested lane. Like you can build an advantage so he can do what he can do best. And I think that is everything that Mike Brown is saying. And Mike Brown is very openly telegraphing the idea that like, hey, like right now, just to get these habits down, it's going to be a little awkward. There's going to be some growing pains. We've seen Jalen, I think every single year he's a Knick, get off to like pretty poor starts the first 6 games of the regular season, to the point that it's almost a tradition. Alex and I would do an episode being like, all right, was this all mirage from Jalen Brunson? Like, what are we seeing? Like, is this the return to earth? Did like the Monstars like take his powers? What is going on? And then it all clicks for him again. So I think it might be a little bit of a slow start to this year, just like it was last year, just like it was 2 years ago. And then I think by the end of the year, it'll all come together. But I think the beauty of all this, and Kris, I think we're on the same page with this. I think this offense like raises the Knicks' collective ceiling, not only in the playoffs, but in the regular season. I think they will be a better team for it.
Yeah, I think it also opens the door for them being a worse team sometimes. Like, here's an example for you. What was it? 13 of 57. They just shot from 3 in a preseason game. Like, that's obviously, yes, super preseason-y, but also that's really bad. They shot a lot of threes and it wasn't working, and they just kept chucking them. And like, you can really easily frame that as like there wasn't a plan B, there wasn't this and that or whatever. That's what you have to hear from the coach after the game, that there were no play calls in, that he's kind of having them go too far in the direction of these principles just for the sake of it, just to get uncomfortable, just to get comfortable doing these things that should become like second nature to them by game 43. I just think there's something to that. And I think there's something to, it's got to happen on the court for it to happen on the court. Like, we've got to be able to do bad. We've got to be willing to fail at this on the court to eventually be good at it. You're not only allowed to deploy a scheme or a personnel grouping or a rotation that you've meticulously decided on and planned will be the best. And then because you did that, you have to see it through for 90, 95, 96 games. Like that's not, there's no legal mandate about that. Like, Mike Brown is going to be trying things out. I wouldn't be surprised if like Deuce McBride randomly starts like 2 games in a week in like week 3 of the season. And everyone's like, oh, Josh Hart must not be playing well. Oh, Mike Brown hates Mitchell Robinson. And then like after those 2 games, it's Mitch for the rest of the year. You know what I mean? Like, he's just going to try stuff because there's only one way to actually find out. And I do think that there is both great beauty in knowing the principles of the game to the point where you understand how things are going to go and you understand that you don't like them. I also think there's maybe more beauty in knowing you won't like it, but being willing to see if you're wrong. And Tom Thibodeau playing Cam Reddish for as much as he did back when that was a thing, like that was, I think, him willing to see if he was wrong. But Reddish also was like this is the guy who put in Daquan Jeffries over RJ Barrett for 1 defensive possession because of positional size, or like there's these wrinkles, right? But with Brown, it seems to be more like, I don't believe in this, and I think it might accomplish something I do believe in. So even if we get to my result with a different process than I'd love, it's still kind of all my process, which is try different things, see what works, make that, it all kind of folds into itself. And it's easy to get lost in all this stuff and all the nuance of like, oh, what What's Brown's style? Like,
Mhm.
you know, you're not going to be able to tell that 4 games into the season.
Yeah.
At media day, he kept referring to like, throughout my career, I've done this, because it's like, that's what you should go off of, is who this guy is, what he likes to do. And what we know he likes to do is be versatile, play fast. He's been very clear about these things. And I do think, and he's said it like this too, because he's never been like, Jalen demanded this. He's always like, I think Jalen's open to it. You know,
Yeah.
there's this trepidation from him a little bit about it, because he's not trying to come in and impose,
Mhm.
but he is trying to come in and coach a damn ball team. And I do think he's learning how to toe that line right now. And as he continues to learn how to toe that line in the locker room, getting more comfortable with these guys as humans, and then more comfortable as their coach, I do think you'll see it play out on the court in the form of some ups and downs, and eventually finding level that is higher than what we thought this Knicks group accomplished last year. Say it manifests in a second round exit, it doesn't mean that they weren't a better team. They may have just missed
100%.
a lot of threes in the second round. Like, sometimes that just happens. You can't be so results oriented.
No, it's all right, guys. We'll be back in just a sec, but first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus. Powered by Peloton IQ, it's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep that much safer and smarter. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each and every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Process over results. And that's why Tom Thibodeau was fired, right? Like, clearly the Knicks front office bought into that idea as well. All right, I know I've kept you a really long time, so we'll wrap it up. But one last thing I want to run by you, because we framed this whole episode in the idea of like, how are the Knicks going to adjust, frankly, to the Knicks, right? Like what they did in the past. How can they be better? How can they be maximized? But at the same time, the opposition isn't static, right? The NBA is changing, the NBA is evolving, and the biggest continual trend amongst contenders in the NBA is follow the leader, right? It is like, what did the last championship team do to win a title? Is it replicable? How are we going to apply it? And that's something XJ and I talked a lot about in lieu of that game against the Timberwolves, because I saw something that really fascinated me. I know you were there in person. I'm curious your take on it and how Jalen Brunson and the Knicks will adjust to it. Like last season, Oklahoma City, not that this is a new concept, but maybe a little bit new just in the context of like the modern, incredibly talented 3-point shooting heavy NBA, right? Where like the level of shooting, the depth of shooting is just different than it's ever been. And like you made an NFL analogy, right? Like we always see like the NFL shifting to offense and the defense figures out a wrinkle, shifting to defense. And I think the defensive wrinkle is some version of what Oklahoma City did, which is to just aggressively pack the paint, dare your best player to consistently spray it out to your shooters, and then over and over again say, you're going to have to make a perfect pass, and then your shooter is going to have to make 3 after 3 after 3 with some of the best athletes and some of the best defenders in the world flying out at them, right? Like at 100 miles per hour, and sometimes like Xing out and like coming from across the court and playing on a perfect string to the point that like you're not going to be getting wide open looks. Even with the perfect drive and kick, you are going to be taking a fairly difficult 3-pointer. And that's a lot of the approach I saw Minnesota take to stopping Jalen Brunson, where like he would, first of all, hit a lot of trouble with Anthony Edwards, who did a great job on him. But when he would beat his man, when he would get into the second layer, Minnesota would just collapse. And they challenged Jalen, who is a very good passer, but is not just because of size limitations. He's not Luka Doncic. He's not LeBron James. He's not Tyrese Halliburton in terms of just a drive and kick savant that over like 30 times in a basketball game can put it right in the shooting pocket in under a second from his time underneath the basket. And because of that, and just because, to your point, the Knicks shooters like were a little bit cold or bobbled the ball or missed some great looks, like Minnesota, I think, was very, very effective in slowing down the New York Knicks. And I want to caveat this take with the fact that like I think the only 3 teams in the NBA that have the athletes, I'm sure I'm forgetting someone, to consistently pull that off the top of my head, are maybe the Wolves, the Rockets, and of course the Thunder. And I think you look at the top teams in the East, like the Magic, the Cavs, the Hawks, can all take a shot at that, right? The Hawks' athleticism on the wings, the Magic's athleticism on the wings, they could maybe do a very solid version of that defense. But I'm curious what you think of Jalen's passing and what the counters are for that. For the Knicks, the most obvious one is that they just have a whole bunch of elite corner 3-point shooters, and that could be your answer right there. But I'm really fascinated at Jalen's ability to consistently hit those passes. I think we've seen some flashes this preseason that suggest he's on track to have the best passing season of his career, and he's more advanced as a passer and just as a reader of defenses than he's ever been. But to me, that is maybe the final step in his game offensively, and also the step that defenses are going to consistently challenge him to execute.
Yeah, I feel like that's the leap that Donovan Mitchell made recently that really propelled him. Like, it was always a thing like, oh, is he a top 10 guy? And it was like, well, without the bubble, probably not. And now it's like, yeah, he's definitely a top 10 guy. Jalen Brunson got into that top 10 for sure because of his elite scoring. No matter what, he is going to make shots, and he's going to make hard shots, and then you're going to double team him and he's still just going to make shots. There's nothing you can do, right? Like this, it's like when they asked, oh man, actually, was it Caitlin or Paige? One of the two was in college, and their coach was, I don't know if it was Gino or the coach was asked, like, how do you stop, if you were coaching against your superstar, how would you stop them? And they were like, pray. Like that's it, right? That's
to clarify for the non-WNBA audience, Caitlin Clark, Paige Becker's arguably 2 best players in the world. But yeah, go ahead. Obviously everyone knows Caitlin Clark, but
under 25, maybe. A'ja Wilson easily number 1.
For
but
sure.
Yeah.
Young, but
yeah. So like the Forbes list of best player. The 25 under 25. But yeah, no. So like that's it with Brunson, right? But that playmaking leap, there were 3 passes that stood out to me against Minnesota. Being there and especially because I could have sat in like the press box, but I didn't, because I almost like the Chase Bridge press box better. I love the overhead view and being able to watch the Knick bench and watch them, on offense on the other end at the same time. And there were these 3 passes Jalen made with his left hand, dominant hand, just absolutely zipped to the right corner, which is like the simple read. That's the strong side read. That's the easy read. But he zipped them so quickly and accurately that the shooter was open, right? And what I mean by that is, like, if he had just turned his body and passed the ball, chest pass, whatever, regularly, by the time they were in their motion, not on the catch, but by the time they were reaching like the apex of their shooting motion, they would have been pretty heavily contested. Jalen got the ball quickly enough that they were able to just fire away. I think one was Gershon, one was Jordan, and one was Mikhail, if I remember correctly. And like, that's it, right? Like we didn't really see Jalen make a lot of those passes last year. And it's not because they weren't there. It's because that wasn't the offense. Like, why risk a turnover to the corner because the defenders are more packed in the paint because they're not guarding Josh? Like, it might actually just be that simple, where like Jalen and Josh are really good together. We've seen them win several playoff. I think of the Philadelphia playoff series. Like, Mitchell Robinson was big in that series. He played a huge role in that series, but that was the Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart like duo that won the Knicks that series. And those 2 guys are really effective together. There is absolutely some synergy there. And, I'm excited to see under new clipboard guidance how Mikhail plays into it. But like there's something there, right? That said, every single time Jalen's on the court, Josh doesn't also need to be on the court. That implies that they are both top 10 players in the world, or that they're both top 50 or whatever it is. You're treating them at the same level of organizational importance. That doesn't make sense. And it's not an insult to Josh Hart to say Jalen Brunson is a top 10 player alive. There's 400 guys in the league. I'm not insulting the other 390. I'm just complimenting Brunson. There's something to getting the ball in the hands of your best player or your best players. And I do think that it's not just that simple. You need to get the ball in their hands and then also make the most of what you have out there on the floor outside of them, have spacing, have rebounding, have off-ball defense, have all of this stuff, right? It all matters. It all matters. It's just about priorities. And it's not, oh, we're going to completely give up on guarding the 3-point line and we're going to go all in on rim protection. No, it's just all balance and the prioritization of all these different priorities. So for the New York Knicks this year, it's going to be less of a priority to have a traditional center on the floor for 48 minutes a game. It is going to be more of a priority to shoot a lot of three-pointers because Mike Brown thinks they have a good shooting team. He thinks they have a great shooting team. This is quickly becoming a Mike Brownism, is a great XYZ, not a good XYZ, a great XYZ. He's like, Ariel's a great runner, not a good runner, a great runner. This is a great shooting team, not a good shooting team, a great shooting team. But he thinks the Knicks are a great shooting team. That sounds like a team that should be shooting a lot. Like, this is not the 2013 Bobcats that he's being like, well, my calculator says we should shoot a lot of threes, so screw it. Like, this is what he thinks is how to the way to optimize the talent that he has on his roster. Do you feel like that balance like is findable in year one? Do you think that balance is going to be there in year one? Because we know that they weren't at homeostasis before. It was working.
Yeah.
But the body temp wasn't 98.6. You know, like it wasn't the perfect process that the front office was looking for. Do you think they can blend that in year one? Do you think they need to? Do you think that's part of why they wanted a coach that they could collaborate with so much?
Yeah, I think they do. Just given, like, to me, the single biggest factor is like we've seen, like, not only like preemptive flexibility, or I shouldn't, preemptive is the wrong word, I guess pre-planned flexibility, like orchestrated flexibility. We've seen like an ability to pivot. Like the big lineups were not working particularly well against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then second half, like you were texting XJ and I about this. Like, he went to 5 out with Gershon Yabusele, and that wasn't working all that well because Gershon hasn't shot that well this preseason, and Minnesota wasn't really treating him like a shooter. So the Knicks saw that, and they said, all right, like, let's try a different lineup with Landry Shamet in there for Gershon Yabusele and have like you want to talk about a great shooting team. Like, they got to, I'm trying to find the exact grouping in my notes. Like, that was a great shooting lineup. It was Brunson, Shamet, McHale, OG, Cat. Like, that is about as much shooting as the Knicks can stuff on the floor in one lineup. And that's the group that brought them back into the game. And it was because Mike Brown was like willing to pivot tactically. And it kind of worked out, to your point, that like that's the direction he's already leaning with this team. But I think we've seen like if a Mitch-esque pivot, like they play the Cavs and it's just a game where it's like our best opportunity to win is to just bully this team on the glass. Like, he's going to be willing to do that too. And it's all about, and like, this was my biggest complaint about Tom, like, you just cannot have preconceived notions of how to win a basketball game. You need to be able to recognize, in like, to steal his phrase, you need to let the game tell you what to do, which I think ironically, it was not very frequent that he actually let the game tell him what to do. And it seems like Mike Brown actually ironically embraces that a little bit more.
I think Tom did let the game tell him what to do. I also think that you could say, to his credit or to his detriment, required a different size sample size. Like, if the Knicks were playing a team that ripped off a 9-2 run, the Knicks would call timeout. And what lineup would they come out of the timeout with? The exact same one that they called the timeout for. They would not make a single substitution. I think Mike Brown will do that sometimes. I don't think it'll happen pretty much every time the way it did under Thibodeau. And again, I have to say, like a legal disclaimer, but like, we don't know yet if this is better or not. What we do know is we saw several consecutive years of that previous approach. And 2 years ago, there was the decimation, which isn't even like close enough to harsh. Like, it was, what's the word for half your team getting injured? Like, decimation is like, I don't even know.
Annihilation.
Yeah, like a complete destructive injury bug, like terminal injury bug, like season ending across the board. Bojan needed 2 different surgeries.
Ended his career
in 2 different limbs. Like, that's insane. It was just that kind of playoff run. But like, again, we don't know if this is going to be better or not. We just know that it's definitely different. And I think it's different in a way that means the Knicks might lose a game by 42 way more often than they would have before. because they're not going to make threes. They're going to go down by 30 by halftime. And by the end of the third quarter, they're going to put in Kolek and
Can I just throw out there, do you think, just to counter that, do you think it was telling that they did shoot 15 of 57? I don't know what the number was when the starters got pulled, but when the starters got pulled, they were in the midst of coming back and they were down 62-56 against a team like, I don't know where you have Minnesota. I would say they're something like the 5th or 6th best team in the NBA. Like, they were still in the game, even though they were shooting terribly. Like, and Minnesota wasn't shooting great either, but
Minnesota
I say that to say,
over.
like,
no, they were shooting all right. They were turning the ball over so much.
For sure. And like the Knicks played a role in that. And maybe to your point, like I don't disagree with you that that'll happen. And like, to Tom's credit, like, they were remarkably good against bad teams 2 years in a row. Like, I think they had a combined record of something like 52, I want to say, in 4 against teams that were more than a couple games under 500. Like, they were remarkably consistent. They might lose a drop of that under Mike Brown, but
they might lose an ounce, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah, I think the ceiling is raised more than the floor drops, is the point I'm trying to make. I don't think they're going to lose by 40 very often this season. And under Tom Thibodeau, they lost by 30 plus, 4 or 5 times last season? So I don't know.
It happened. And I just think Mike Brown is willing to find out the hard way. Like, I think at the end of the day, if he feels like Tom Thibodeau was very in on establishing winning habits and a winning culture, and that being very significant. I think Mike Brown is more in on establishing winning habits and teaching the team not to care as much about the result, as backwards as that may be, right? Like, I think Mike Brown is willing to lose a game against Charlotte on a Thursday at MSG if it means that he gets what he deems a very valuable data point about his roster heading into the trade deadline or heading into the NBA postseason. That's not right or wrong. That's not righter or wronger than before, but it is different. It is just different.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end on. This was our Jalen Brunson 2-part player preview. It veered into a lot of Mike Brown versus Tom Thibodeau, but I think, to your point, like, this is not something I realized going into the episode, but you taught me throughout the episode. That's a lot of this conversation, because Jalen Brunson is a constant that can be influenced externally by his coaches, and the constant is very, very good. It is just, does that lead to a championship? And we're going to find out together. For Kris Pursiainen, check him out on Twitter at Kris Pursiainen. I'll spell it out. You don't do it, but I'll do it. Pursiainen. Check him out on Twitter. Check him out on Google. Check him out over at Clutch Points, covering the Knicks, covering the NBA at large. I'm Gavin Schall. You can, of course, find me here on Locked On Knicks. Until next time, we'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks.